Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about episode 16 of season 2 of Young Justice called Complications. First of all, a quick apology for the delay in this video getting out. I've been sick the last few days. Today's the first day I've really been back at 100%, so, c'est la vie, right? Anyway, let's get right into it. Even though this episode is called Complications, it really feels more like minor plot advancements is probably a bit more of an apropos title. In fact, let's just kind of get into it. Honestly, the only thing that's really fully resolved here is the question of Sportsmaster going uh, after them for the damage to his rep, which really doesn't make sense. At the end of it, it's like Horsemaster basically walks out of there seemingly satisfied that his rep is still intact. Now, this doesn't make sense. In fact, his rep is probably even more in the toilet because as far as anybody is going to know, he tried to kill Black Manta and failed. The world doesn't know that Artemis is still alive. I mean, really, like I said, his rep is probably going to be even worse now. But this doesn't even seem to occur to Sportsmaster. It's really actually pretty ridiculous there. But I have the feeling this is maybe about all the resolution that we're going to get in that regard. So, yeah, kind of sorry, writers, you dropped the ball on that one, I think. Now, we did get one nice moment with Sportsmaster and Jade kind of bickering at each other. And Sportsmaster is none too subtle about getting in Jade's face and pointing out to her, that it basically says, "We're not so different, little girl." And let's give Sportsmaster credit. He is pretty much right. I mean, let's face it, murderous assassin for hire, nobody walks away from that with the Person of the Year award. In fact, really, the only thing that Jade has going for her over Sportsmaster is that she has some degree of compassion. She cares about at least a few people besides herself. Now, these are pretty much just Roy, Leanne, her mom, and Artemis. But let's be fair, Sportsmaster only cares about himself. He doesn't really care that Artemis is dead. He just cares that his rep is soiled. I mean, it's a pretty thin line, but when it comes to villains and redeeming qualities, I suppose one has to take what one can get. Now, there's also, of course, the potential complication that Jade telling her and Artemis's mom that Artemis is still alive could blow up in everybody's faces down the road. I mean, I don't think they'd have introduced that subplot there if they weren't going to do something with it, but I don't know. I'm just not terribly. It just doesn't really feel like something very ominous. Now, I could be completely wrong on that. That could just be another way of them showing some degree of compassion in Jade. She wants to alleviate her mother's pain. Let her mother know that her daughter is okay. I don't know. I'm kind of willing to let that particular storyline end here because we've obviously got other fish to fry. But to go back to what's going on the submarine a little bit, and let's talk about McGann. Now, reading some comments people have made around the internet, one thing that some people were really throwing out there was that after everything that has happened, that McGann was feeling kind of suicidal, that she genuinely seems to want to die there, that she seems to think that this would be her just punishment for what she did to Aqualad. And if you see the sort of resignation in her at the early part of the episode, that certainly is a believable theory. But on the other hand, also look at what happens when Miss Martian is free and able to really do her thing. She really comes alive and is out there, dishing it out at 100%. Now, granted, this could be her deciding to embrace the possibility of redemption instead of, self-termination. Again, it's a lot of speculation as to what's just going on in her head, and I'm honestly looking forward to some further insight on that. I think that I think seeing her do this, kind of seeming to get that spring back in her step, as it were, I think that was needed because, well, when bad things happen to heroes, obviously they need to take some time to deal with that, but you really do need to keep that time condensed. Don't have them be okay with whatever happened the next day. That's just bad storytelling. But don't drag it out. In fact, I think I remember reading a TV writer say one time that when something like this happens, like the death of a loved one or something like that, to happens to a major TV character, you give them about 3 episodes of working through it, and then by the fourth episode after that, they need to pretty much be back on track, either back to the way they were or firmly embedded in the new status quo for the character. And frankly, I think for folks who write for TV, I would consider that to be pretty seriously good advice. So, now while there are bound to be certain exceptions to these sort of rules, I think it's worth it is an idea that is worth keeping in mind. Now, let me see here. Going back to again, continuing on with the stuff on the submarine, I gotta say that while they might have the writers might have dropped the ball on what was going on with Sportsmaster and his rep, just the constant switching back and forth between the heroes really trying to maintain the cover of what was going on, and just seemingly endless complications, the back and forth, the strategizing, the improvising. I mean, if I tried to recap everything that happened from memory, I think my tongue would fall out of my mouth. It was just so much going on. And yet I was never confused as to what was happening. And it was just really exciting and fun to watch. I mean, there are primetime dramas with notable, very good live action actors who don't do situations like this as well as this episode. Let's put it this way. That is some real top-notch writing there. So, yeah, points to the show for getting that right and getting it really right. That was just superb. And if I could actually speak about Sportsmaster one time more briefly, I gotta say I really did like that they really pulled out the stops with him, really showing how he can go to town with weapons and do whatever with anything he gets his hands on. He's using javelins, flails, even a freaking chakram. You don't really see those much outside of old reruns of Xena Warrior Princess these days, huh? And let's see. Let's move on. I think that covers kind of everything that we have going on under the sea. The plan for Aqualad infiltrating the light seems to be back on track, so we'll see how that goes. Now, the whole thing with the Reach covering up what happened to the rest of the team. Okay, the Reach apparently seriously suck at crime scene tampering with crime scenes, because one, there's that Bertarang that apparently must have gotten itself really, really well lodged into that wall, because it was able to stay there even when faced with the friggin' vacuum of space. No, I'm not saying that's impossible. It's just strikes me as being a little unlikely. And there's also the idea that if they just sent somebody in there to look around carefully, or just even had Blue Beetle do it, yeah, they probably would have found that thing. And keep in mind, they know that the leader of the team is Nightwing, the protege of the world's greatest detective. So if you are going to try and BS the protege of the world's greatest detective, maybe you should try and go over your doctored crime scene very, very carefully first. But this doesn't seem to even occur to the Reach, and it is just so laughably ridiculous. Again, the second laughably ridiculous idea in this episode. Now I know I'm coming down from just praising the combat gambits on the submarine to high heaven, but this is an episode that goes from highs to lows. So let's let's put it that way. And even then, the Reach further bungle things when, while this is all going on, I mean, literally just hours after happens, basically the next day, they send Blue Beetle off to publicly reveal his identity and endorse the Reach. I mean, the Reach have just so tipped their hand. It is almost unbelievable. And keep in mind, this is after they'd basically sent their little army of spaceships to stop those nuclear missiles. Now, why is it that this isn't remarked upon is completely beyond me. I mean, how in the world did somebody not notice this? Folks, I do love this show, but man, sometimes, huh? Sometimes. So anyway, now I mean, not that the heroes didn't realize the Reach were up to no good. I think this is quite firmly established. But I think that at this point, the heroes have to realize that they can't dick around anymore. There needs to be some real action taken against the Reach. And not to mention that in tipping their hand like this, the idea that anybody is really going to pay any serious attention to the theory that these guys the rest of the team were kidnapped by Mongol, that's suddenly sown into, at best, serious doubt, at worst, thrown completely in the wastebasket. Now, granted, the Reach know the heroes don't trust them and are pretty much onto their plans already to some degree. They just simply don't have the proof to take it to the public. But still, the Reach have really just, seems to me they've made things worse for themselves more than they really needed to. If they'd just kind of kept playing the long game like they have been, I think this might have worked out better for them. But again, this episode is mostly to kind of push things along, to sort of, basically, just to push things along a little bit, to get everything in place for whatever it is that happens next. And while it does that, there's really quite a few gaps in logic that you have to be willing to put up with. And as nice as that stuff on the submarine was, which I still enthusiastically praise, I don't think it quite makes up for the gaps in logic this episode really is asking us to accept. So I can't say that I consider this to be a terribly strong episode. In most, really, it's a somewhat weak episode with a few very strong points that aren't really enough to save it from being. But anyway, folks, I still have confidence that we will see a truly impressive finale to this season and, sadly, this series. So hopefully things will pick up again next episode. With that said, folks, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.